Senators will be in their seats. Clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Baumgartner. Billinger. Blasey. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Fagg. Fauscudo. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Cluse. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Pittman. Pyle. Reddy. Reichman. Schallenberger. Steffen. Straub. Sykes. Thompson. Tyson. Ware. Warren. Wilborn.
Senators and guests, please rise and give prayerful attention to our chaplain.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, I pray your special blessings upon all in this house, that our hearts and minds come into sync with yours. In James chapter 1, verse 8, you tell us that the uncertainty of double-mindedness causes instability in everything we do. So, Lord, please meet each one of us at the point of our particular need. Where there is double-mindedness, bring godly decisiveness. Where there's harshness, bring gentleness. Where there's partiality, bring fairness. Callousness, bring sensitivity. Indifference, bring compassion. Apathy, bring enthusiasm. Hypocrisy, bring sincerity. Where there's willfulness, bring obedience. Where there is fearfulness, bring boldness. Where there is wastefulness, bring resourcefulness. Where there's impulsiveness, bring cautiousness. Disorganization, bring order. Where there's unfaithfulness, bring loyalty. Where there is anger, bring peace. Lord, we are in what is called the heartland of this nation. Let us be the heartbeat for this nation's good. Let the pulse of your Holy Spirit's presence in us permeate this land. Work your work in us. Then, Lord, work your work through us. I pray this in the name of Jesus, whose stability never changes. Amen and amen.
Standing.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On point of personal privilege, Chair recognizes the senator from Shawnee, Senator Dietrich.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, it's my pleasure today to introduce you to the Washburn Rural High School four-speaker debate team. Washburn Rural won their 8th straight four-speaker KSHA championship this year, which is a record for 6A school. They're in our VIP section over here. This is the state's 17th overall state championship in debate. It includes 13 four-speaker championships and 4 two-speaker championships, most recently in 2022. In addition to their successes at the KSHA State Championships, the Washburn Rural Debate Team has also found success at the national level, finishing in the top 20 at several national tournaments over the last 5 years. In 2019, the school was just the second in history to represent both teams in the finals at the National Speech and Debate Association tournament, emerging as co-champions. Washburn Rural again won the NSDA National Tournament in 2022 and has been named a top 20 debate school in the country by NSDA 6 times in the past 8 years. The team also won the 2022 National Debate Coaches Association National Championship, which is a newer yet prestigious award. The school has qualified a team to a national tournament for over 30 consecutive years and has had a team finish in the top 20 every year since 2016. So I'm going to read these students' names. They're here today with their coach, and I would like you, when I'm finished, to give them a wonderful round of applause. We have, and you can just wave, Harris Chaudhry, Kavi Chidambarinathan, I hope I did that right, Campbell Height, and Aditi Nimishikavi, and their coach, Tim Ellis. Congratulations.
Congratulations on your accomplishment. Welcome to the Senate. I'm sure we could even learn something from you, so. Please note references to bills on page 1 and 2 of the calendar. Messages from the House, clerk will read.
Announcing passage of substitute House Bill 2460, House Bill 2806, 2810, and 2819. Announcing passage of Senate Bill 424, 481, and 491. House Bill 2819, an act concerning sales and compensating use tax. Substitute House Bill 2460, an act concerning post-secondary educational institutions. And House Bills 2806, an act concerning counties, and 2810, an act concerning insurance.
There having been an objection to Senate Bill 524 on the consent calendar, the bill's been removed and placed on general orders. Before recessing, are there announcements? Seeing none, Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Cali, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Republicans will caucus in room 548 upon recess. I yield to Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Democrats will caucus in room 287 North. Upon recess, I yield back to the Senator from Cali.
Senator from Cali.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate recess to the sound of the gavel.
For the motion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We're in recess. Come to order. Chair recognizes Majority Leader from Cali, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move the Senate resolve itself in the committee of a whole for the consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of general orders.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Chair appoints the Senator from Shawnee, Senator Cluse, to preside over the committee of the whole.
We'll now turn our attention to HB 2562, and the chair recognizes Senator from Lyons, Senator Longbine, to explain the bill and to adopt a committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we adopt the committee report.
Okay, you've heard the motion to adopt the committee report. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, motion carried. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2562 would create the Protect the Vulnerable Adults from Financial Exploitation Act. The bill defines the act to include elder adults over the age of 60 and dependent adults over the age of 18. It allows for a broker or dealer or an investment advisor to hold up funds if there is reasonable belief to believe that there is exploitation of an elder occurring in that transaction. They may hold the money up for until they determine that there is no exploitation, or 15 days maximum, or a protective agency could request an additional 25 days if there's additional investigation that needs to go on. It would also require the broker or dealer or investment advisor to notify the protective agencies that they've held up funds and to report the exploitation attempt within 2 days of the request. It provides some immunity for the brokers while they're holding up that transaction, and it passed the House 120-0. It is model legislation and has been adopted by 41 other states. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Senator. Are there questions for the Senator from Lyons? Okay, seeing none, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2530 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. 2562? Oh. Sorry about
Trying
that.
to get ahead of myself, Mr. Chairman. Could I just do all four of them at the same time? We'll just skip them.
You may proceed.
I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2562 favorably for passage.
Okay, now you heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we'll turn our attention to HB 2176 and the Senator from Sedgwick County, Senator McGinn. And would you, Senator, adopt a committee report?
I move we adopt a committee report.
Okay, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What House Bill 2176 does is brings or gives the Ark City Public Library and the Udall Public Library the opportunity to expand their boundaries. And though expanding those boundaries would be by a vote of the people. And they will also have to leave their South Central Kansas Library District for a period of time. They have one, and then they have to wait a year, and they can come back in and renegotiate their list. So the bill provides all the provisions that they have to do. They have to adopt a resolution to create the library district, stating the proposed tax levy amount for the library. They shall also be the library district shall be established and maintained by the district board, shall be appointed as provided in this act. And the library board trustees, there'll be 4 of them appointed by the governing body of the city of Arc City, with 1 member residing outside the city. 3 members shall be appointed by the Board of Education and shall reside outside the city of Arc City. Section 6 talks about the rules of incorporation. And then Section 7, the board shall prepare an annual budget for the maintenance support of the library prior to the certification of the budget to the Board of Education. And then once you get to Section 9, it basically the language repeats itself for the Udall Public Library. This bill passed overwhelmingly in the House last year, and we had much discussion on it, mostly as it related to the South Central Kansas Library Board's concern. They met March 15th. We waited to do this bill until after they met. They wanted to make sure they understood the bill because they didn't want to drain down their accounts. And so by the fact that they have to remove themselves from the South Central Kansas region and then reapply in a year, they can renegotiate their contract to make sure they're not draining down that money. I think the most important thing is they're expanding into a rural area. And the rural area that uses the library will now be taxed beyond the city limits or the school board's area. But keep in mind, the people have to vote for this as to whether or not they want it. And if the people do not vote for it, it will not move forward. So at this time, I understand that all parties are in agreement, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Senator. Are there questions for the senator from Sedgwick? Any questions? Yes, recognize Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask that we pass over the bill. I have an amendment on the way.
Okay. We'll continue to, where are we at? Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to continue to debate on the bill. If there's no more questions, then we'll take it up. Then we'll pass over. Yes.
Okay, now,
Senator from,
thank you, Mr.
Yeah, sorry
Chairman.
about that.
Just want to make sure I'm not totally confused. I know that there is another amendment that we could deal with this at this time, and I would like to ask Senator from Lynn if she knows if this amendment is on the way or the ink's still wet. I mean, just kind of know how long it might be before that amendment gets here.
Senator from Lynn, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question. I will check with the revisers. They had a busy afternoon today, but I do know that they are working on it.
Thank you, Senator from Sedgwick. Oh, we got it. Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I have an amendment for this bill. It has been turned in, and the number is 3720.
Okay, thank you, Senator. And would you like to read and explain the amendment, or would you like it read?
I'll explain it.
Okay. Let's hold off until we have it all distributed. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And Senator from Sedgwick, you may now proceed.
Thank you. This amendment would have the state librarian set up the Blind Information Access Service, and the Blind Information Access Fund would be funded through the KUSF, the Kansas Universal Service Fund. The KUSF is part of those small fees that we all have on our phone bills. The result is that there's no SGF funds needed for this bill, for this amendment. This amendment would provide a critical service for our Kansas neighbors who are blind, visually impaired, deafblind, or print impaired by way of a digital content through audio, electronic text, and braille reading technologies. The BIAA, the Blind Information Access Act, would provide entree for them for over 200, or 500 rather, periodicals, so something for everyone, local news, as well as weather reports and emergency alerts. Most blind people use their cell phones to utilize this service. This service would be of great benefit to thousands of Kansans. The fiscal note on this is only $99,000. So it would benefit a lot, no SGF, low money. Seems like a great thing. Hope you do too.
Okay, are there questions for the senator from Sedgwick? Senator Ware? Yes.
Thank you. I would just like to ask the senator from Sedgwick a question.
Yes, Senator, proceed.
Thank you. I was just wondering if she could share, did this bill pass out of committee and was it non-controversial?
Senator from Sedgwick.
Thank you. Yes, it passed out of the Utilities Committee unanimously.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for the senator from Sedgwick? Senator Ware? Senator from, where are we at? Butler, Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just stand, no questions. I just want to stand in support of this. I want to thank Senator Ware for her work on this. It did come through utilities. It was unanimous. There was a lot of written proponents. The testimony was very good, and this is a chance to help the blind in the state of Kansas. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there other questions for the senator? Yes, and I forgot what county you're from, Senator. I'm getting there.
Cherokee.
Cherokee. I should remember that one. Yes, Senator. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cherokee County is in the southeast part of the state. It's a beautiful place.
Montgomery area.
13th District has Bourbon and Crawford and Cherokee in it. I like the amendment. Unfortunately, I don't like the bill. So when I vote no, I want the people who are supporting of your bill. I don't think this bill is as popular as your amendment. I just want you to be aware of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other questions for the senator? Yes, Senator McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The senator from Sedgwick did bring this to my attention, and it sounds like it's a good amendment, and I have no opposition to it.
Okay, thank you. With that, Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Ware, you can move your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are thousands of Kansans who struggle with printed material and would benefit from this service. It requires no SGF. It costs less than $100,000 a year and passed out of committee unanimously. I hope that you'll all join me in supporting this amendment.
Okay.
I move my amendment.
Yeah, thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're back on the bill. Thank you. Are there any other questions for the senator from Sedgwick, Senator McGinn? Otherwise, we will pass. Senator Lynn, from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been told that the amendment is in proofing right now, so that's the final stage. It should be on its way up.
We will temporarily pass over the bill, Lynn. Okay, with that, we will turn our attention now to HB 2532 and the senator from Lyon, Senator Longbine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we adopt the committee report.
Okay, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries, and you can explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2532 is the same bill as Senate Bill 338, which we passed out of this body a month or so ago, 40-0. It changes the requirement of submitting your certified independent financial statement from 150 days to 180 days. It came to us as a request of the insurance commissioner. I'll stand for questions.
Okay, questions for the senator? Any questions? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2532 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to now turn our attention to House Bill 2557. And the chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Warren. You may explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill comes to us from the Chiefs of Police Association, the Peace Officers Association, the Sheriff's Association, as well as the Kansas Highway Patrol and the KBI, and most primarily by the First Responder Support Team Midwest. And why is that? It's because it deals with peer support counseling sessions for our first responders across the state of Kansas, whether they're law enforcement, EMT, EMS. And what it provides is, as you can imagine, you're in the role of a first responder, and currently in law, if you are part of a peer support counseling session, that session, as long as it arises from a critical incident or traumatic event, those conversations are privileged and shall not be disclosed except if there is a threat of suicide or criminal act, or there's information relating to abuse of spouses, children, or the elderly, or admission of criminal conduct. And what the bill does, brought to us by our law enforcement community, is that it expands the privilege so that if you're seeking peer support counseling, not just because of a traumatic event or a critical incident, but as the bill states, for professional, personal, or social problem or difficult life event where peer counseling assistance and guidance would benefit members of our law enforcement agencies, our emergency responses providers, our National Guard, you also then have the privilege so that your communications cannot be disclosed later except in those circumstances where we talked about threat of suicide or criminal act, information relating to abuse of spouses, children, the elderly, or admission of criminal conduct. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions.
Are there any questions? Okay. Yes, the senator from Douglas County, Senator Holland.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yeah, the carrier of the bill would just please stand for a question.
Senator?
Yes.
Yes, she's standing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my concern about this bill, and I must admit I had not heard about these types of groups before, but I guess my question is that was there a discussion concerning basically somebody potentially unintentionally incriminating themselves under the auspice of, hey, you know, I'm attending this group, this peer support counseling session, and I know that certain things are going to be held in strict confidence, but maybe I'm not so wise about other things not being held in strict confidence. And so now we have basically more people being brought into this arrangement where more people now think they have a privilege where they can speak confidentially, and in fact, we have more people potentially exposing themselves because they had the misunderstanding, Mr. Chairman, that what they're saying could not be used against them, and in fact, it can.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sure, that was a direct question. And so the bill provides that if you are seeking peer support counseling for professional reasons, personal or social problem, or difficult life event, you can have those conversations. There's wasn't any discussion in committee or any testimony about you're not in police custody or not free to leave the peer counseling session, so it wouldn't be a situation where you have a Fifth Amendment right to not self-incriminate yourself. So I'm not sure how to answer other than it's brought to us so that these folks can seek some additional peer support.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Holland.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a statement, and I would ask the carrier of the bill to correct me if I'm incorrect. It sounds like that somebody attending one of these peer support counseling sessions could incriminate themselves with criminal or other, I guess, consequences. Would that be correct? If that subject matter was in one of the exception area where the privilege was not covered, would that be correct?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is correct that if a person, pursuant to the bill and current law, if you're in a peer support counseling session and you admit criminal conduct, that admission can be disclosed.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the carrier bill's comments. My concern is that I'm not an attorney, but I don't know under what is the mindset of a person. Basically, if they're voluntarily participating in a peer support counseling session, they're told that certain things are going to be held in confidence, but there are exceptions to that. I'm just concerned about somebody unknowingly implicating themselves when they thought all along that they would be free to talk free and clear to get some mental, I guess, relief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Johnson, Senator Warren, would you like to respond? Okay, are there any other questions for the senator? With that, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close. And I move that when the committee rises and reports, it report House Bill 2557 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll now, are we ready? We'll now turn our attention to SB 371, and the chair recognizes the senator from, where are we from? Johnson County, thank you. Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 371, oh, I need to say this. I move we adopt the committee report.
Okay, you've heard the motion to adopt the committee report. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You may proceed. Explain
Thank
the
you.
bill.
Senate Bill number 371 is just a one-page bill. We passed it out of committee as appropriately on Interhab ID Day, which is Intellectually Disabled Day at the Capitol. Today is Down Syndrome Day. We may have folks in the gallery that stayed over to hear this bill on the Senate floor. We all know that in current law, allowance of the issuance of a public notice of a missing elderly person is called the Kansas Silver Alert. When this bill was brought to us, it would ask if we would include those in the ID community. And the proponent testimony came from representatives of Interhab, the Kansas Council on Developmental Disabilities, the Autism Society of America, Missing Person Reports, Adults with ID, to reach a wider audience. That was the purpose generally stated for the bill. We also had neutral testimony from law enforcement, and they had a couple of concerns. And then we had opponent testimony from the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. As chair of the committee, I urged those three groups to come together and see if they could come up with a compromise that would work, and they did just that. So the committee amended the bill to exactly who would be the person that's 18 years or older, and they must meet the following criteria on the front page of your supplemental note. Been diagnosed with ID or intellectual disability, whose whereabouts are unknown, is believed to be in imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death because of the ID, and is believed to be unable to return to safety without assistance. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions for the senator from Johnson? Okay, seeing none, Senator, you can close.
Mr. Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports Senate Bill 371 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Now we'll turn our attention to HB 2531. And the chair recognizes Senator from Lyon, Senator Logbein, to explain the bill and adopt a committee report.
I move we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Senator, you may proceed to explain the bill.
House Bill 2531 is our annual date change bill for risk-based capital. It simply changes the date from December 31 of 22 to December 31 of 23. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none. Senator from Lyon, you can close. Thank you.
I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2531 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We'll now turn our attention to House Bill 25, or let's see, we're on SB 493. Senator Warren, okay. We'll now turn our attention to SB 493, and the chair recognizes again Senator Johnson, or Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you.
Can explain the bill.
This bill is brought to us by the Kansas Highway Patrol, and it concerns changing the interlock ignition devices that are used when an offender is convicted of a DUI. And what it provides is that the manufacturer of the device shall collect the $10 installation fee for the installation of the device, and also a $5 a month maintenance fee, so that the offender bears the cost of installation and service rather than the taxpayer. So to do that, and if we pass the bill, then that allows some of the FTEs that are currently helping administer the installation and oversight of the devices in the KHP. It allows 2 of those who are currently officers doing that to return to duty on the streets and have 2 civilians in those roles instead. I don't know if you know this already, but there are over 300 vendor locations that can install or maintain these devices across our state, and at least 1 location in each of our 31 judicial districts across the state. Last year in 2023, there were over 6,600 of these devices installed and over 54,000 attempts to drive after using one of these IIDs that were stopped. So the devices do seem to be effective, and this would help make sure that the offenders are paying for them. And with that, I'd stand for questions.
Are there questions for the senator from Johnson? The senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley, were you up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, but I'm going to yield to my colleague from Wyandotte. I have an amendment that I'd like to discuss. So if I might yield to Senator Petty.
Senator Petty, apologize for that. Thank you.
It's okay.
You may proceed.
I just would like to bring to the attention of the body, we have a couple of our fine Kansas Highways Patrol, well, now we have 1, but we did have 2 officers. Oh, we do have 2 here on the floor with us. And actually, I had the privilege of being the first grade teacher of one of them.
Welcome, gentlemen. We appreciate it. Thank you.
I yield back to the senator from Wyandotte.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator from Wyandotte. Senator.
Thank you, and thank the senator from Wyandotte for an introduction for our finest that are here with us in the chamber today. I support the underlying bill as presented by Senator from Johnson, the chair of Judiciary, Senator Warren, and in terms of the policy of ignition interlock, I have put an amendment in. I'd like to offer an amendment to discuss our policy. It has been submitted. It is revisor number 3430.
Okay. And Senator, would you like to explain your amendment, or would you like to have it read?
I can attempt to explain it, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, a little bit of background on ignition interlock and the policy that we have. The ignition interlock device is used to operate a vehicle where the driver of that vehicle must blow into the device to allow the vehicle to start or to stop. If there is significant alcohol, like a breathalyzer exam, if there's alcohol or that's at the level of impairment on the breath, on the ignition interlock, then the car will not operate. By the way, periodically, the car will stop or recall or need another activation by blowing into it for the car to continue to run or vehicle to continue to run. The ignition interlock is often used, as it should be, for those who have been convicted of a DUI. And when we just first implemented the use of the ignition interlock for DUI, I was a part of the Judiciary Committee and the Conference Committee that would put into place the use of ignition interlock for those licenses that had been suspended because of a DUI. The option would be, the original law was to be an option. First-time offenders with a 1-year suspension, first-time DUI, would have the option of being able to drive during that year that their license was suspended with vehicles equipped with ignition interlock. And that's the way it should be. The problem is the law has been misused, or it was changed to say that in order to get on a first-time DUI your license reinstated, one would have to show, the applicant, the first-time offender, would have to show having driven for 1 year a vehicle with ignition interlock. That was never the original intent. It was an option. So this amendment is simply saying that someone of a first-time DUI whose driving privileges have been restricted or suspended spends that 1 year of suspension, but can still get reinstated after that 1 year without need of going in showing to the department that they drove for that 1 year with the device. I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Are there questions on the amendment? Yes, Senator from Johnson. Senator Warren, would like you to respond.
Thank you. I do have a question for the carrier of the amendment. Was this amendment heard in committee?
Senator from Wyandotte.
Not in, Mr. Chair, Senator from Johnson, not in the last year or two since she has been chair. This has been around ever since the law has been misused. We've had a couple of discussions about it, and there's been an attempt to restore it to its original meaning in a while. So I don't know, or I don't recall, and maybe Senator from Johnson, Mr. Chair, can help us to remember if we've had a discussion recently in the last couple of years or so.
Senator from Johnson, you can respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So regarding Senate Bill 493, there wasn't a proposed amendment on Senate Bill 493. So since we're on the bill, I'm going to stick to, well, we're on the amendment, but it's on a bill that's part of our discussion right now. So there wasn't a committee hearing on this particular amendment. It was not amended to this, suggested for this bill in committee. And I do have a follow-up question when it's the appropriate time.
Thank you, Senator from Wyandotte. Senator Haley, would you like to respond?
Well, this is a policy decision, Mr. Chair. We just, is it right to have people who are suspended for a year because of a first-time DUI have to show that they drove around with this device after 1 year if they just, catch the bus or take some other means of transportation during that year's suspension? It's a policy decision. It was never intended that we would have compulsory 1 year showing driving with this device on their or the family's car. Oftentimes, some of the people who are first-time offenders don't even own their own vehicle. So it was never intended for it to be that way. And this just brings us back to a common sense normalcy for the policies.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So because this amendment was not brought in committee, I had an opportunity to talk to the reviser about it. And I said, what does this proposed amendment do? And it would no longer require that even first-time offenders have an interlock ignition device. So it would remove from law the requirement for first-time offenders that they have an interlock ignition device. And without a proper testimony about that in committee and a large change such as proposed in this amendment, I would consider the amendment not friendly.
Are there other questions for the senator on the amendment? Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question for the senator from Wyandotte.
Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley, go ahead. Go ahead, proceed, Senator from Francisco. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question is, if an individual has been convicted for the first time of a DUI and they're in a situation where they can't afford to pay for this interlock device and choose instead to ride their bicycle or walk or get rides or take an Uber, my understanding is even if they did that for the suspension period, they would still have to prove to the court that they had gotten a vehicle equipped with an ignition interlock device. Is that my understanding?
Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Mr. Chair, exactly. That's exactly. It's very well described by the senator from Douglas.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then I stand in strong support of this amendment. I have had a constituent who went without driving privileges only to find out that that wasn't enough. It's not enough to just not drive for that time. You have to have a motor vehicle equipped with an ignition interlock device. And I think we should allow people to make that choice. This amendment clearly says, and I'm looking on page 2, the third line, such person may apply to the division for such person's driving privileges to be restricted for the suspension period to driving only a motor vehicle equipped for ignition interlock device. So this would allow them to apply for that so that they could get their driving privileges reinstated, but they would also have the opportunity to say, I'm going to go without my driving privileges. I think that should be a choice that we let that individual make. Thank you.
Are there other questions on the amendment? Senator from Reno, you may ask your question.
Thank you. More of a statement. These kind of details are so nicely handled in committee when we have unfettered access to the reviser, access to law enforcement, and the good senator from Wyandotte is on the committee. So I'm with the carrier of the bill. I would prefer not to pass this amendment at this time, but carry it over into the future as a opportunity to correct down the road if it so be that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other questions on the amendment? Yes, Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Ware.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. The point for me is that these are Kansans, real people that we're talking about. And I honestly have not seen the data, but subjectively, it seems to me that the majority of folks who get DUIs happen to be of low income. And given that, we should do all we can to work with them. If they choose to walk for a year, that's a pretty good punishment. That ought to drive the point home. And honestly, the alternative is that we are subsidizing this device industry. And that's not what I want us to be about. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from Douglas, Senator Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in strong support of the Haley Amendment. It's almost like, this program is it's almost like it's discriminatory. I mean, it's not taking into any consideration, but basically, you know, our urban brothers and sisters who maybe probably don't have a car. Maybe they've always used public transportation. Who knows? And for the life of me, I do not understand why if a person's normal mode of transportation, going to work, going to their house of worship, is on a bus, walking, some other means, that you are going to rope them into having to utilize a device, okay, that they never would, that for a mode of transportation they don't have to begin with. I mean, does that say then, okay, to that urban dweller who uses the bus, not only do you have to have this device, but you need to go out and buy a car, okay, and strap the thing on and screw around with that for a year. I mean, to me, this is just some common sense that we can do to have a better appreciation for some of our Kansans whose primary mean is not an automobile or four-wheel transportation. So I strongly rise in support of the Haley Amendment. I hope the body would take this to heart. You know, we can get this, if it goes before a conference committee or for the thing, then we have that discussion there as well too. But I appreciate the senator. I've been around for a while. I know he's made several passes at this. And I just think it's a sense of fairness and decency for our urban folk. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Other questions? Yes, Senator from Johnson, Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm a bit confused because the way I read the current language, that if one is suspended, it will restrict the person's driving privileges. It doesn't say anything about passenger privileges, riding on a bus, riding a bicycle, only their driving privileges for that 180 days. To driving only a motor vehicle equipped with an ignition device. If they choose to walk, just as long as they're not driving themselves. Could I ask the bearer of the amendment to say, am I correct about that and the way I'm reading this?
Senator from Wyandotte, would you like to respond?
Let me try to clear up a few things. So this applies to drivers, only to drivers. And the ignition interlock device is affixed to a vehicle. And in order to drive the vehicle, whomever that driver is, not passengers or anyone else, in order to drive it, one must blow into the device. And it allows the car, as long as there's not significant alcohol on the driver blowing into the device's breath, it will then allow the vehicle to run. And again, periodically, it will stop and have to be recalibrated, start up again. It doesn't pertain to anyone else in the vehicle, a passenger or what have you. To the second part of the Senator from Johnson's question, Mr. Chair, the period of time, and we're talking about first-time offenders here, those who are getting their first DUI. And these first-time offenders who had been driving and were found to be impaired to get a driving under the influence have the option to drive the day that they're suspended up through the period of suspension, 180 to 365, from half a year to a year, the option to a drive the next day that they're suspended up to that time, as long as they drive in a vehicle that has this device, this ignition interlock. That is current law, and that will stay the current law. And we certainly, I think, all support that. We give an option to those on restricted driver's licenses to drive and continue to drive immediately. The problem is, and what this amendment will fix with your assent, Mr. Chair and members, what this fixes is it's compulsory now under our law, which has been perversely applied, to show they must have that same restricted driver. They must show in order to drive or to have their license reinstated after the 6 month to that 1 year period, they must show a period of having complied with a vehicle equipped with the device, even if it goes well beyond the suspension period. So if they were suspended, first-time offender here in 2024, and went without driving, for a year, and wanted to get reinstated in 2025, but had not driven or had this device on a car, they couldn't get their license back. They have to wait 25, 26, 27, 28, they can't get their license back because they're not able to show that they drove for a year, 6 months to a year, with the device. And that's not what was ever intended whatsoever. And that's what this amendment will clear up, to say if a year passes, then they come and make application, they'll be able to get their license back. I hope that clears up the question of Senator from Johnson. If not, let me take another crack at it.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it doesn't really clear it up for me just because I don't see anywhere that it says it's compulsory for them to drive. I just see that if they drive, it must have the interlock device on it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there other questions on the amendment? Yes, Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And clearly this is a complicated area of law when you're talking about driving under the influence. We've heard the carrier of the amendment suggest that's not what was intended by the law, and that's why he's bringing the amendment. But how do we know? Because we did not have full committee debate about this with the opportunity to ask law enforcement about it, to have input from research as well and the revisor. And in this complex area of law, it's important that we get it right. So I'm not sure what the "that's not what was intended" statement was based on, but had this amendment been brought in committee, we could have gotten better to the bottom of it.
Senator from Wyandotte, would you like to respond?
Well, I know it's a take my word for it that this was not intended, because I was here. I was the ranking member on Judiciary who, with then Chair of Judiciary, Tim Owens, my good friend from Johnson, who I worked with all the time, who had me acquiesce. And I said, okay, as long as this is what it's going to be, Tim, our Senator, okay, fine. That there'll be the option of 1 year so that people will be able to drive. And so I signed off on it. Who knew, well, I should have guessed, that the industry would come in and say, this is pretty good. They get 1 year, the first year of suspension for first-time DUI. Hey, let's make it compulsory. That if they don't show that they did, the industry, the same one that we're attempting to ensure pays its way in the underlying bill a little bit more than they have, and the same industry that regrettably prays with exorbitant fees for those first-time, second-time, tertiary, or whatever offenders with these devices, with this expensive device, the same industry is the one that shifted it so that indeed what was originally intended, if you choose to take my word for it, Mr. Chair, but I was here, we helped write the law, or not, gets nothing out of it. There's no public safety, change in our public safety, or there's no difference in our highway funds. It is just an industry that's often predatory, that has abused the laws originally intended, so that first-time offenders now have to show that they had this device on, whether they chose to walk or bike, catch an Uber, or hitch a ride with someone for that 1 year while they did their time of suspension for the first-time DUI. And let me say to a comment, this isn't just an urban problem, Mr. Chair. I mean, it's probably more exacerbated, more problematic in some of our rural geographies. If you are trying to get from point A to point B, you got a farther distance to cover, and you're trying to do your time of suspension for that 1 year, and you're hitching a ride with folks that are doing whatever you got to do and travel over a span of many miles, it's probably difficult in the rural areas too. And then to show that you have done a year, you did your suspension, and you go in to get your license, to hook your license. I did my year. First time DU, I did my year. And they go and say, well, sorry, Ned, you can't get it back. You can't turn it back on because you haven't shown where you've been driving with this, this contraption, this device. You got to go get it hooked up. Hook it up on some moving device. Hook it up to the tractor and just have it on there and show that you blew into the tractor. Hook it up to somewhere. You just got to show that you paid the fee and went and got it calibrated, and anytime you drove for a year before you can get it back, your license back, it's been a year. That's what Kansas law is saying now. And some folks said that it wasn't supposed to be that way, but sorry, Ned, that's the way it is, and you'll never be able to get your license back until you show that you have this device. And it's a rural problem, it's an urban problem, it's a suburban problem, and it was never intended to be this, and I hope we can correct it with this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Chair reminds you we're still on the amendment. Other questions? Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think there may be some confusion because the amendment is just allowing a person to apply for driving privileges to be restricted to driving with the ignition interlock device and not requiring that. So if you look at the underlying law, and I'm starting on page 2, the bottom line D1, it says, whenever an ignition interlock device is required by law, such ignition interlock device shall be approved by the Highway Patrol and maintained at the person's expense. Proof of the installation of such ignition interlock device for the entire period required by the applicable law shall be provided to the division before the person's driving privileges are fully reinstated. That's the part of the law that's creating this requirement, and I believe the wording in the amendment is changing this opportunity so that the person may apply for that. If they haven't applied for that, then this other law would not be required. So I'm asking the senator from Wyandotte, is my understanding of that correct?
Senator from Wyandotte, would you like to respond?
Senator from Douglas is spot on in her, as usual, in her reading and interpretation of the measure.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, right now our law says proof of the installation for the entire period required by the law shall be provided to the division before the person's driving privileges are fully reinstated. That means somebody can't just walk, take the bus, have an opportunity to do something different. When they've done that for a year, they're going to come in and the division is going to say, oh, okay, but that's not what the law says. The law says you have to provide us proof that you've installed this ignition device for a year. I have seen this amendment before. We've talked about it before. I am glad that once again we have this chance to try to make this sensible and appreciate the senator from Wyandotte bringing it. Thank you.
Senator from Wyandotte, would you like to respond?
I appreciate the observation of Senator from Douglas.
Are there any other questions on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, Senator from Wyandotte, you can move your amendment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's just saying that this amendment will say that not 100% of anyone on a first time or any time, first time DUI, 100% have to have ignition interlock to get reinstated. 100% that everybody would have to. If they do their suspension time, their 1 year, the time they're suspended, that they should be able to be reinstated. It's just simple. And with that, I move my amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. I think there's a question on that. I think we'll go aye. Pretty close. Call division. Microphone. I think I'm going to go ahead and ask those that are in favor to please stand. Okay, you can be seated. And all those opposed, please stand. On a vote of 14 to 17, the motion fails. We're back on the bill.
Question. I just want to clarify.
Questions for the senator from Johnson? Oh, yes, Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The carrier would stand for a question, please.
She's standing.
The one question I did have about this, I was, I guess, intrigued that it sounds like the industry is paying basically for this, I guess basically these services. Is that correct? Is that basically the point of the bill, Mr. Chairman?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The intention of the bill, from my understanding from KHP, is that the convicted offender pays for the installation of the device and the maintenance of the device rather than the taxpayer.
Senator from Douglas.
Oh, so just to clarify, okay, so when the title of the bill reads requiring the manufacturers to pay, that doesn't sound like that's what's going on, is it, Mr. Chairman?
Senator from Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I talked with KHP, and the manufacturers will collect the fee, and then the manufacturers will send it to the state treasury in a fund to be administered by the superintendent of the highway patrol. So the manufacturer collects the device from the offender and sends it on to the state treasury.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Holland.
Yeah, okay, so in essence, basically the users of these devices are going to get hit up with more fees. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that clarification.
Senator from Johnson, would you like to respond? Are there any other questions on the bill? Seeing none, Senator from Johnson, you can close.
Thank you. So appreciate the robust debate on the bill. And it is a bill to provide that with all these interlock ignition devices out there, we heard just last year there were over 6,600 installed. There has to be a way to make sure that each device is properly serviced and calibrated and properly installed. The devices, like I said, do seem to be effective with over 54,000 attempts to drive while would not be permissible legally to drive, and have stopped those attempts to operate the motor vehicle. So it is supported by the KHP as well as the Chiefs of Police, the Sheriff's Association, and the Peace Officers Association. With that, Mr. Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it report Senate Bill 493 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. What? Okay, I believe the amendment has arrived, so we're going to turn back to House Bill 2176. And the chair recognizes the senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment, and I've turned it in. It's 3744.
Senator from Lynn, would you like to explain or have your amendment read?
I'll explain my amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What the amendment would do is make the board that is a taxing authority an elected board.
Are there questions on the amendment? Yes, chair recognizes the senator from Sedgwick, Senator McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trying to do some quick research on this, just to let the body know. Under 12-1222, if they're in a city or a county, they're generally appointed. If they're in multi-jurisdictions, some are elected as well. So I kind of, I hate saying this, but I kind of would let the body decide on this. The only concern I think I would have, especially in small communities, a lot of people are pretty well taxed, no pun intended. I'm thinking of more of because they're on a school board or they're on something else. I just would be concerned if it would be hard to get people to actually go out and run a campaign to be on a library board, and it might just be better suited for them to be appointed. But that's about all I can share.
Senator from Lynn, would you like to respond? Okay, the chair recognizes Senator from Lyons, Senator Longbine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I certainly appreciate the senator from Lynn bringing this amendment. Wondering if she has any idea on what the additional cost on the counties would be, and if this is an unfunded mandate. We continually talk about property tax, but we continually send them more expense. So does she have any idea what it would cost to add library boards to elected officials?
Senator Lynn, Senator Tyson. Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think there would be any additional cost other than the printing on the ballot. It'd be much like the precinct elections. It would alternate. There's 7 board members, and it would start out with 3 board members having a 2-year term, the other 3 having a 4-year term, and then they would all get into a 4-year cycle, and the ballots are on existing ballots already, so it wouldn't create a separate election.
Senator from Lyon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that response. I certainly don't have any reason to question whether it's accurate. I am concerned that I know that county commissions and city commissions beg people to be on boards, and if they are then required to be elected, that probably does reduce participation. Thanks.
Senator from Lynn, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's gonna, obviously the body will decide, but we've got several taxing authorities in the state, and it's supposed to be taxation with representation. And this would ensure that.
Chair recognizes the senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question for the senator from Lynn.
Go ahead.
Is her amendment only addressed to the library districts created for Arkansas City and for Udall?
Senator from Lynn, would you like to respond?
Yes, it would only be for these 2 library boards.
Okay, thank you, Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is there a reason that we should elect these 2 library boards and not all of the library boards across the state?
Senator from Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess somewhat ironically, I was going to have a bill this year that would have elected all boards that were taxing authorities, but it was a very short, it is going to be a shorter session, and time did not allow because that is a very big change across the state. So this is a small bite at the apple, and you will be seeing legislation in the future that addresses this issue.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciated the opportunity we had in the local government committee to talk with representatives from these 2 districts about their concerns and their plans. We didn't ask them at all about whether they felt the directors of their board should be appointed or elected. So my concern would be we're providing an opportunity for these 2 districts that they asked for, and now we're putting a requirement that they had no opportunity to have a discussion or give any input. This would just be an amendment added to the floor. I think it'd be more appropriate to initiate this as a bill that would allow for that kind of discussion rather than just adding one more requirement to this bill and to these 2 individual districts who are trying to do something for their library patrons.
Would the senator from Lynn like to respond? Are there other questions on the amendment? Senator from Barton, Senator Straub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not really a question, but more of a comment. I support this amendment. I can think of multiple different taxing entities that are governed by boards. Just in the little town I live in, we have a board of trustees for our community college, hospital district board. What was the other one I was thinking of? The Extension District Board, which spans across a couple counties. There are extension districts that cross multiple counties. I just want to stand in support of this amendment. I think it's very good for the taxpayer to have some sort of oversight and influence on the people who are levying those taxes. So thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from Finney, Senator Dole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the senator from Lyon hit it well. There's a 3A school in my district that to win, the mayor won with 7 votes. The city commissioner or city council won with 3 votes, and the city council member is on the board, school board, and he's also on the fire district board. So there's just so many people that in some of these communities that are going to serve. Udall, I'm pretty familiar with Udall. Udall would fall under that category. So I just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
Would the senator from Lynn like to respond? Are there any other questions? Yes, Senator from Sedgwick, Senator McGinn.
I'd just like to share, I'm more concerned about the small communities, and based on some of the other comments that were made. Keep in mind the people who are appointed by elected officials, whether it's city, county, or schools.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other? Yes. the senator from, is it Johnson?
I'm from
Miami, my apologies.
I'm
Senator
from Miami. Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
Senator.
Chair. I am in support of this amendment for several reasons. We've had a problem with our library board in Miami County. In fact, I believe they were fined by our county judge and had to have some disciplinary measures because they weren't following Cora or Coma. They're allowed to tax, and the taxpayer has no say in their representation. So this is a measure that gives taxpayers, we've all heard it before, taxation without representation can be harmful. And so I think this measure addresses that one step at a time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Would the senator from Lynn like to respond? Are there any other questions on the amendment? Seeing none, you can move your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've heard the debate, whether we have an elected representation taxing authority or not. I move my amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Motion carries. We're back on the bill. Chair recognizes Senator from Sedgwick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't see anyone else wanting to be recognized, so I would move that when the committee rises and report House Bill 2176 as amended favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we're going to turn our attention back to, let's see, HB 2530, and the chair recognizes the senator from Lyon, the Senator Longbine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion to adopt the committee report. All those in favor? Opposed? You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2530 would amend the definition of a person regarding insurance law, and it would remove auto club from the definition of a person. The insurance department no longer regulates auto clubs. This bill, as Senate Bill 340, previously passed our body 40-0, and 2530 passed the House 118-2. I stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the senator from Lyon? Seeing none, Senator, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2530 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, motion carries. We're now going to turn our attention to House Bill 2525. And the chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery, Senator Peck. Would you explain the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2525 deals with Class 1 and Class 5 injection wells. There are actually 6 different classes, but we're only talking about 2 classes, 1 and 5. House Bill 2525 tells KDHE to adopt guidelines for fees they charge for underground injection control wells. It sets maximum fees for active and inactive hazardous waste injection wells and non-hazardous waste injection wells. The legislation will also require the Secretary to reduce fees for facilities. Some facilities are already subject to the fee for salt solution mining, underground storage and natural gas, embedded salt, and liquid petroleum gas and hydrocarbons. The monies collected from these fees will be credited to the subsurface hydrocarbon storage fund, which is used to cover the cost of regulating these underground wells. Additionally, currently, water wells and water waste facilities fees go to the State General Fund. They will no longer go to the State General Fund, but they will go to the Water Program Management Fund. And the House did put a good amendment on it that I think is important for mentioning, and that is when regulation of wastewater ponds are included in here, but it does not include small capacity sanitary septic systems, nor single-family residential septic systems. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the senator from Montgomery? Seeing none, Senator, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move when the committee rise and report, it report House Bill 2525, favorable for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We're now going to look at HB 2783, and the chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is 18 lines long, and it's nice and simple. And it basically states that no state agency, city, or county shall regulate or restrict the use or sale of motor vehicles by the public based on energy source. Now, this doesn't affect the ability of an agency or municipality to purchase certain types of vehicles. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Senator from Douglas.
Mr. Chairman, I think the other senator from Johnson beat me to the punch.
Okay, Senator. I'll recognize the senator from Johnson, Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Johnson's a great place. I don't know if you've been there. I want to start off by saying I support the underlying bill, but I do have an amendment, and the amendment is 3726.
Thank you, Senator. We'll pause for a moment. Chair recognizes the senator from Johnson. Senator Olson, would you like to explain or have your amendment read?
I will explain it.
Thank you.
You've seen, I think I've improved the amendment, but you've seen this amendment from me before. This is dealing with the unmanned vehicles up to 34,000 pounds. One of the things I didn't realize when I ran it before, that exemption of 34,000 pounds will come off in 25. So if we don't pass this amendment and put it on in the calendar year 25, there will be no exemption on the unmanned vehicles on weight. So you will have semis running, allowed to be able to be running up and down the road with 248-foot trailers with nobody in them. But what this amendment does is it would put the 34,000-pound exemption. It would keep it in there with someone riding in the truck. So they could still drive it unmanned, but someone up to 34,000 pounds would have to be in the truck. The exemption in 25 that was going to be rolled off, that's been scratched out. It will no longer, semis in 25 will not be allowed to have unmanned people in them, unmanned trucks. They will have to have the normal semi-drivers, and they won't be part of this bill. So it'll only be cars or trucks under 34,000 pounds that will be able to drive unmanned. They'll have to have someone in the vehicle, and you know, like I said, that exemption, we've completely taken it out. But if this doesn't pass in the calendar year 25, you're going to have semis running up and down the road with nobody in them. And I think, you know, we need to walk before we run. And, you know, my amendment last time was a lot stronger, but I think this is what the people want. I've been talking to a lot of people back in my community about this, and this really does concern them. So I don't know. I hope they see it as a friendly amendment, but I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The underlining bill is talking about the sale of motor vehicles based on its energy source and establishing motor purchase policies. And this amendment appears to be talking about autonomous vehicles. So I'm going to challenge the germaneness of this amendment.
Okay, germaneness has been called. Germaneness has been challenged, so the Rules Committee will convene. The chair recognizes the senator from McPherson for the Rules Chairman.
Thank
Senator
you, Mr.
Wilburn.
Chairman. The underlying amendment is a different chapter, changes the title and changes the subject matter, and therefore it's non-germane.
The amendment has been ruled not germane. There's been a challenge to the ruling committee. So this is a non-debatable motion. A vote in rules, a yes vote, sustains the ruling of the chair. A no vote overrules. All those in favor for a roll call?
Point of order.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Can you please explain what a yes vote does and what a no vote does?
A yes vote sustains the ruling, and a no vote overrules it. Say aye. All roll call, 5 hands. Okay, roll call. We'll start with a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Well, you need to see 5 hands.
I need to see 5 hands at once. Okay, seeing 5 hands, it's in order. The clerk will call the roll.
Point of order. Explain a yes vote and a no vote, please.
Yes, a yes vote will sustain the rules. A no vote does not.
Point of order.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, just to kind of go another level deeper, a yes vote will sustain the ruling of the Rules Committee that this was a non-germane amendment. A no vote will say the Rules Committee was in error, perhaps, and that the underlying amendment was germane, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Chair.
for the clarity. Okay, we can proceed. Clerk, call the roll.
Alley. Baumgardner. Billinger. Blasey. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Fag. Fascudo. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Cluse. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Pittman. Pyle. Reddy. Reichman. Schallenberger. Steffen. Straub. Sykes. Thompson. Tyson. Ware. Warren. Wilborn.
Has every senator had a chance to vote? Oh, Senator from Shawnee, Senator O'Shea.
Thank you. I vote aye.
Yes, Senator from Sedgwick.
I vote aye.
Yes, Senator from Lynn.
Thank you. I'd like to explain my vote.
Okay, proceed.
Thank you. While I support the amendment, I do think that the Rules Committee ruled accurately.
Is there any senator that wish to explain their vote? Any senator wish to change their vote? Are you standing for the? Okay. Okay, seeing none, the clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Okay, on the vote of 25 yea and 15 nays, the rule of the chair is sustained. We are back on the bill.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator from Johnson, chair recognizes you, Senator Olson.
I'm going to make a couple comments on what just happened. And, you know, I think it's a sad day, really. You know, somewhere down the road, something serious is going to happen on this issue. And I get the players are powerful people on the other side. But people need to realize 34,000-pound vehicles right now, but it's going to be semis in just a few months running up and down the road with nobody driving. I can't believe we got here. This issue's a disgrace, in my opinion. Because we got powerful people in them halls out there that have allowed this to happen.
Chair recognizes Senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson. Did you have anything? Okay.
Standing for questions, Mr. Chair.
I believe Senator from Douglas. Senator, question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the carrier, we stand for just a couple questions. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess my first question is that I was kind of curious by this. Is this basically, Mr. Chairman, the thought that if the state of California is going to start restricting vehicles based on energy consumption, we want to be sure that we're not going down that path? Would that be I'm just asking for a general characterization of the bill.
Senator from Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that. That's part of it. However, the EPA, in fact, just had a ruling yesterday that also is waging war on internal combustion engines and placing extreme restrictions on the tailpipe and exhaust that are unreachable. In fact, the Toyota Prius, the most efficient car on the market, already has double the emissions that the EPA standards were set by 2023. And so with a situation where the free market is not being allowed to happen, where consumers are being told in places like California and a few other states, I believe, that they can't buy, or it would be unwise to buy an internal combustion engine because they're going to be forced into an EV. We need to protect our Kansans and our economy, agribusiness, our oil and gas industry here in Kansas. So that's the short answer, Mr. Chair.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I now am officially confused about this bill. I guess what I want to know is does the carrier of the bill, does he see the intent of this bill basically as a vehicle, no pun intended, to push back against any sort of what would potentially be viewed as overly burdensome regulatory scheme from the federal government? Is that the purpose of this bill?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson.
Well, certainly it's happening. It's happening right now via various means, not only through the EPA, but also with high subsidies. They're trying to nudge people in that direction, obviously. But the EPA rules are so onerous that in states like California, who are following those mandates, are putting them in serious situations. There was one example that I heard about a semi driver in Southern California that could fill up his semi with diesel and drive 1,000 miles, make all his deliveries. He was being forced into using an electric vehicle, and he could barely go 2 hours without having to recharge. Couldn't make deliveries, had to disconnect the cab from the trailer to go find a charging station. So it's more than just a nudge from the federal government. It has to do with the economy of the state, has the ability for consumers in Kansas to be able to make the choices they want. And this also has impacts on, for example, our small stores, the convenience stores that sell gasoline, who operate on a very thin margin already. So it's an economic protection program as well as looking down the road and seeing where we're heading with some of these federal government mandates, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm not trying to all be discourteous, but just I do not, in all sincerity, believe I received any sort of answer to my question. My question is getting to the point is that does the carrier of the bill believe that if this legislation is enacted, that this somehow would shield Kansas, the act of this legislation should shield Kansas from some sort of perceived federal regulatory oversight?
Senator from Johnson.
Certainly, obviously, federal elections have consequences. And those type of federal mandates coming down from the government will certainly have an impact on the state, but it's as much of a policy statement as anything else, but here in statute, we can prevent individual municipalities from trying to implement that here in Kansas and try to at least front run as much of it as we can until the administration up in Washington changes. That's the best answer I can come up with, Mr. Chair.
Senator from Douglas.
Okay, and I appreciate the carrier's repeated basically communications to help me figure this out. So I'm basically going to ascertain that no, this bill itself is not any sort of legal mechanism to rebut any sort of federal regulation. It's more basically just potentially firing a warning shot, letting folks know where we know as a state. My second question would be, though, Mr. Chairman, is that when I've seen bills like this before, I know the state has had an interest in basically trying to keep the local units of government in line with the state. This, to me, jumped out at me from, it sounds like basically this bill would also basically say, we don't want the state agency as well basically doing anything to once again do something quote unquote adverse from the proponents of this legislation. And I'm wondering why, Mr. Chairman, if the carrier could please explain to me the need for being sure that any Kansas state agency, why we're taking any sort of regulatory or restriction authority away from a state agency in this bill.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson, would you like to respond?
Certainly. I think all we have to do is look to another situation, COVID, for example, where the CDC made recommendations and it was followed by KDHE and we closed down the entire state. That had a very direct impact on all the businesses in the state. And so it's not out of the question that something similar could happen via the EPA rules, even though I might point out that West Virginia via EPA in 2022 ruled that they could not do it. The EPA is doing it anyhow. And so these state agencies may take it upon themselves to follow suit with the federal government and start imposing those sort of mandates here in the state. And so this bill is not without teeth. It's not without a good reason that we're doing this. We want to prevent that. We want to protect our Kansas industry and give them some assurance that we're not going to have end up with some kind of a patchwork where some individual municipality decides it wants to ban internal combustion engines. It becomes unworkable in a patchwork basis. That's where the state does, I believe, need to step in and protect our economic interests. Mr. Chair.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just a comment, and then I'll have a follow-up unrelated question. This is one concern I have about the bill from the perspective of this, to me, smartly smacks of the legislature yet again getting out of its legislative lane and in essence telling basically our executive branch what they can or cannot do. And so that's the debate for the body to decide on how they want to come down on. And to me, this may be an issue you think it's appropriate we tell the executive branch what they should do. There may be other issues where you fully would want the executive branch. And this to me is problematic because I guess once again we're seeing another sign that the legislature is going to tell other bodies what they should be doing. And I think we should be sticking to our own knitting, as it were. And then finally, I do have an unrelated third question, Mr. Chairman. When I was looking at this legislation, what I wanted to be sure is that we're just talking about either the state or the units of government basically not being in a position to regulate or restrict the sale of motor vehicles only. Is that all this is? Just we're talking about the sale of either a new or a used vehicle based upon an energy source?
Senator from Johnson.
Yes, that is correct. It says the use or sale of motor vehicles, new or used, I would assume, by the public based on the energy source. So it makes sure that we're not restricting sales based on the fact that the internal combustion engine uses gasoline. By the same token, it doesn't restrict an electric vehicle either. It's by energy source.
Senator from Douglas.
Okay, and so this was probably my nerdiest question of the bunch. I guess I want to be, my question was to say, if say a semi operator started running, say, used cooking oil versus diesel fuel, we're not opening up any doors here as far as would this bill say possibly put the camel's tin on the nose of basically the existing vehicle. You could basically use alternative energy sources, in effect would bypass our taxing, our regulatory schemes, to being sure that appropriate use taxes are being paid or whatever. And that was, if just have any comment on that, I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Johnson.
No, I don't believe that was ever the intent of the bill. The intent of the bill is just to, if somebody comes up with an engine that uses used French fry grease, I suppose they could do it. It wouldn't restrict it as long as it works and as long as it met the emission standards. But to circumvent the taxes or tax structure, certainly no. This is just to ensure the free market works for consumers and what they'd like.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the carrier's indulgence. Thank you.
Other questions for the carrier of the bill? The other senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just standing to say that I believe that the other senator from Douglas made some good points, especially regarding or restricting the use based on the energy source. So oftentimes we are regulating based on the energy source, and right now we have passed some legislation that says we're going to make requirements for electric vehicles that are different because we want to still pay for our roads. And so we're going to ask them to pay a higher registration fee. Could this, so I do have a question for the senator from Johnson. Could this restrict that ability to say, because it's an electric vehicle, you can't make that registration fee higher than for another vehicle?
Senator from Johnson.
I don't believe so, Mr. Chair. All it's saying is that city or county shall, no agency, city or county shall regulate or restrict the use or sale of that vehicle. I don't see how that would necessarily open the door to the taxation of an EV, although I would argue that a lot of these EVs are much heavier than the regular internal combustion engines vehicles and do wear on the roads. That's been a proven fact a lot more. So maybe that's something we should consider, but that was not considered in this bill. This bill, again, is a consumer access piece. We shouldn't be able to restrict consumers' ability to buy a fossil fuel internal combustion engine or an electric vehicle if they'd like. I mean, this is a free market type bill, Mr. Chair.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would the senator from Johnson be concerned if a vehicle was being powered by nuclear energy?
Senator from Johnson.
No. If they could come up with one that was safe, and in the future, that may happen. Certainly, I'd be happy with that. If you can figure out a safe way to do that and protect the driver and the other people from the radiation or whatever, that would be fine.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you can't have any regulations, how can we be assured that it would be safe?
Senator from Johnson.
I'm pretty certain there are rules about, you know, we regulate vehicles in Kansas for safety. The Highway Patrol stops somebody if they see a tail light out, for example. There are all sorts of different ways that we look for safety issues. So I think we're getting far afield on this. We're reaching just a little bit. We're really talking about, you know, the ability for us to buy and sell certain types of vehicles.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it may be appropriate to have different regulations for vehicles that are powered by propane or hydrogen or nuclear or electricity, and I think this could be limiting that because it does limit regulation. I understand the concern that we do want the public to be able to purchase vehicles that fit their budget, fit their needs. I think right now this is a bit overreaching. I do know that the League of Municipalities had some concerns. It is a preemptive bill. They're trying, this isn't something that's happening right now in Kansas. It's trying to say maybe that could happen. I'm not sure that I want to fill our statute books with concerns over what might happen. I appreciate this. I believe in trying to make it based on the energy source. It's made more broad and perhaps could come with complications in the future. Thank you.
Senator from Johnson, would you like to respond?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other questions for the carrier of the bill? Senator from Lyons, Senator Longbine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to explain to the body that this is a bill that I'll have to pass upon. This directly affects my business in the event that this bill passes. That means I can continue to offer a consumers a choice of propulsion systems and profit off of that. With this bill not passing, a bureaucrat could in some way require that we sell vehicles that there's very little market to, which would be devastating to my business. So unfortunately, I'll need to pass on this outstanding bill.
Are there any other questions for the carrier of the bill? Seeing none, Senator, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2783 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll now turn our attention to the last bill of the day, HB 2561. And the chair recognizes the senator from Lyon, Senator Longbine, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2561 would update and modernization of the credit union statutes. The highlights of the bill are it would allow domestic credit unions to operate branches outside of the state as long as those branches complied with the state in which they were located in. It would allow the supervisor of credit unions to enter into informal agreements with credit unions if needed. It would also allow for civil penalties for violations. It would remove duplicate filing requirements. It establishes an appeal process for credit unions who are under suspensions, and it updates the requirements for mergers. House Bill 2561 passed the House with 114-3 to vote, and there were no opponents in the House, no opponents in the Senate. I'll stand for questions.
Questions for the senator from Lyon? Seeing none, Senator, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2561 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The chair recognizes the majority leader from Cowley, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Clerk will read the committee report.
On motion of Senator Alley, the Senate resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of General Orders with Senator Cluse in the chair. Recommended, House Bill 2562, 2532, Senate Bill 371, House Bill 2531, House Bill 2530 be amended by the adoption of the committee reports and the bills be passed as amended. House Bill 2557, Senate Bill 493, House Bill 2525, House Bill 2783, House Bill 2561 be passed. House Bill 2176 be amended by the adoption of the committee report, be further amended on motion of Senator Ware and Senator Tyson, and the bill be passed as further amended.
Chair recognizes the senator from Shawnee, Senator Cluse, to adopt the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we adopt the committee report.
For the motion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Report's adopted. Chair recognizes the majority leader from Cowley, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move an emergency be declared, the rules suspended, and the following bills be advanced to final action and roll call. HB 2562, HB 2176, HB 2532, HB 2557, Senate Bill 371, House Bill 2531, Senate Bill 493, House Bill 2530, House Bill 2525, House Bill 2783, and House Bill 2561.
For the motion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We will hold for final action, and we're now ready for final action. On the first roll call, we will take the following. The bills on page 4. House Bill 2562, 2126, 2532, 2557, and Senate Bill 371. Clerk will read the titles.
House Bill 2562, an act concerning securities. House Bill 2176, an act concerning library districts. House Bill 2532, an act concerning insurance. House Bill 2557, an act concerning the rules of evidence. Senate Bill 371, an act concerning the Kansas Silver Alert Plan.
Clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Baumgardner. Billinger. Blasey. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Fagg. Fauskadeau. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Close. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Pittman. Pyle. Reddy. Reichman. Schallenberger. Stefan. Straub. Sykes. Thompson. Tyson. Where? Warren. Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Senator Johnson, Senator Olson.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Change their vote? Seeing none, clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Forty voting in favor and 0 opposed to Senate Bill 371. 36 in favor and 4 opposed to House Bill 2176. 40 in favor, 0 opposed to House Bill 2532. 36 in favor, 4 opposed to House Bill 2557. 38 in favor, 2 opposed to House Bill 2562. These measures, having reached their constitutional majority, are hereby declared passed. Second roll call, we will take the following. Bills on page 5 of the calendar. House Bill 2531, Senate Bill 493, House Bill 2530, House Bill 2525, House Bill 2783, and House Bill 2561. Clerk will read the titles.
House Bill 2531, an act concerning insurance. Senate Bill 493, an act concerning driving. House Bill 2530, an act concerning insurance. House Bill 2525, an act concerning the Department of Health and Environment. House Bill 2783, an act concerning motor vehicles. House Bill 2561, an act concerning financial institutions.
Clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Baumgardner. Billinger. Lazy. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Bag. Falscadeau. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Close. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Pittman. Pyle. Reddy. Reichman. Schallenberger. Steffen. Straub. Sykes. Thompson. Tyson. Ware. Warren. Wellborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Senator from Douglas, Senator Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I vote no on House Bill 2783. Once again, the Kansas Legislature attempts to exceed its constitutional bounds by interfering with operations of the executive branch.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On HB 27H3, local control or home rule, whichever you'd rather call it, is a basic Kansas concept. This guiding principle has been ignored over and over again in the Kansas Legislature here. Going forward, it will be very hard for me to vote for any bill that turns its back on our counties and cities' authority to govern themselves. I vote no.
Further explanation vote, Senator from Brown. Senator. So ordered. Further explanation, Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Could we have a preliminary, please, on 493?
493. Looks like 29 in favor, 11 opposed.
I'd a no on 493, please.
So ordered. Further explanations or changes? Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. President. With their permissions, I would like to join both the senator from Douglas and the senator from Sedgwick on their explanations of vote on 2783.
So ordered. Further explanations or changes? Seeing none, clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. 28 having voted in favor and 12 opposed to the passage of Senate Bill 493, 40 in favor and none opposed to this passage of House Bill 2530, 39 in favor, 1 opposed to the passage of House Bill 2525, 40 in favor and none opposed to the passage of House Bill 2531 and 2561, 29 in favor and 9 opposed to House Bill 2783. These measures having reached their constitutional majority are hereby declared passed. We're now ready for the motion to withdraw Senate Bill 286 from the committee. The clerk will read the motion.
Pursuant to Senate Rule 11, I make the motion that Senate Bill 286 be removed from committee and placed on general orders. Senate Bill 286 was referred to Fed and State Committee on March 3rd, 2023, over a year ago, where it has languished. Senate Bill 286 is a bill critical to the health, welfare, and well-being and the pursuit of happiness in our Kansas citizenry. Senator Mark B. Stephan, MD.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Those have it. Motion fails. Roll call, 5 hands. Seeing 5 hands, roll call's in order. Clerk will call the roll.
Baumgardner. Billinger. Blasey. Bowers.
We had a glitch. We got to return to B. So you're up. Start with Blasey, please.
Blasey. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Bag. Faust-Godot. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Cluse. Longbein. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Pittman. Pyle. Reddy. Reichman. Schallenberger. Stephan. Straub. Sykes. Thompson. Tyson. Ware. Warren. Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Senator Johnson, Senator Warren. So ordered for the changes. Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
I think we are waiting on one of our members.
You have an ETA?
She should be here.
Yeah. While we're waiting, any other explanations? Senator from Riley, Senator Reddy, could you repeat your vote? We may have it miscalculated. Okay, thank you. That was, it was recorded as a pass. So, yeah. Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Yes, Mr. President, I vote no.
Very good. Any further changes? Senator from Johnson, Senator Gossage.
As to no.
Further changes? Senator Johnson, Senator Thompson.
Explanation of vote, Mr.
Please
President.
proceed.
Thank you, sir. Sometimes allies in a war disagree on battle tactics. On multiple occasions over the past year or so, I've explained to my allies, who are the proponents of Senate Bill 286, why hearing this bill would be detrimental to achieving our mutual goal of overturning the Hodes decision and protecting life in Kansas. I've sought the counsel of pro-life leaders here in Kansas and those who have been on the forefront of fighting for pro-life legislation nationally for decades. They all agreed there are issues with the language of this bill that would thwart our efforts to establish a culture of life in Kansas. Our situation here in Kansas is not like Florida or Texas or many other states. We must deal with the unique political climate that exists here today if we're going to make the right decisions. Otherwise, we're simply running headlong into a burning building without a fire hose. We can't expect victory in the battle for the lives of the unborn without being united in purpose and possessing the proper tools to achieve our goal. I just can't support an effort that I firmly believe will set us back, and so I must vote no. Thank you, and I will ask it spread across the journal. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further explanations of change, Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Peterson.
I don't know.
So ordered. Any further explanations or changes? Senator from Barton, Senator Stroh.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to speak to those people that have lobbied for against abortion for decades. It seems that their ways may be somewhat antiquated, and there is a new generation of young people that are now able to vote, and they're also able to see their unborn children in the womb, and very, it's very real for them. And I think we're seeing this next generation as a more pro-life generation than we've ever seen before. So I fully support pulling Senate Bill 286 from committee and actually having that real discussion. Thank you.
Senator from Reno, Senator Stephan.
Thank you. I voted aye in building off the good senator's statements. The next generation is Students for Life. Students for Life is the national organization that brought this bill to us. They are an entity full of 18 to 24-year-old kids across this country. There's chapters in universities in every state. They are a thriving, growing, powerful organization that leads the pro-life industry at this point in time. I want you all to know who they are, what they're about, and that they're coming. They're coming strong, and they're coming with a lot of years behind them. Where we're in trouble, folks, is individually, we all ultimately have to answer to the good Lord on how we personally dealt with abortion. And most of us, I hope, are not touched negatively in that respect. But we, as a body, as an elected legislature, don't have that luxury. We are the Pharisees of the 21st centuries. We're responsible for making this society into what it looks like, feels like, tastes like, smells like. And we'll have to answer for that in due time. We are only here a very short while. Thank you. I exceeded my limit, therefore I will not spread that on the record. Thank you.
Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Petty.
Thank you. Our young generation, my generation, your parents, they want Medicaid expansion. Let's pass Medicaid expansion.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you. I vote no, and Kansans overwhelmingly told the nation on August 2nd that a woman should have the right to choose. And so I vote no because we have already voted for this.
For the explanation of changes, Senator from Shawnee, Senator Cluth.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I voted no because pro-life Kansas are focused on what the abortion industry does not do. showing authentic care and compassion for women facing unexpected pregnancies. Now more than ever is the time to focus on policies that truly save lives. Our courts are intent on striking down every law that comes their way that puts any guardrails on the abortion industry. There's little doubt that the Kansas Supreme Court would welcome that opportunity as well. As SB 286 further erodes existing limits on the abortion industry, further endangering women and preborn babies. There's too much at stake and lives are on the line. It's clear that far too many women are being pushed to believe abortion is the only choice. Pregnancy resource centers are under attack. I remain committed to working on a proposal to help women choose life for their babies. Thank you.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. President. With her permission, I would like to join the remarks of the senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Sword, further explanations or changes? Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Thank you, Mr. President. With her permission, I don't know if the senator from Wyandotte was going to put her remarks. Oh, she's not. Well, then never mind. Thank you.
Explanations or changes? Seeing none, clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Seven having voted in favor and 26 opposed, motion fails. Introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 557 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning school districts.
This constitutes introduction of Senate Bill 557. Reports of standing committees, the clerk will read.
Mr. President, the Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources recommends substitute for House Bill 2168, and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends HB 2353 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Ways and Means recommends House Bill 2491 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2601 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2665 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2781 be passed, and because the committee is of the opinion that the bill is of a non-controversial nature, be placed on the consent calendar. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2605 be passed, and because the committee is of the opinion that the bill is of a non-controversial nature, be placed on the consent calendar. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2144 be amended by substituting with a new bill to be designated as Senate substitute for House Bill 2144, and the substitute bill be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Assessment and Taxation recommends Senate Bill 537 be passed, and because the committee is of the opinion that the bill is of a non-controversial nature, be placed on the consent calendar. Mr. President, the Committee on Financial Institutions and Insurance recommends House Bill 2711 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Federal and State Affairs recommend House Bill 2615 be passed, and because the committee is of the opinion that the bill is of a non-controversial nature, be placed on the consent calendar. Mr. President, the Committee on Federal and State Affairs recommends House Bill 2618 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Federal and State Affairs recommends House Bill 2358 and the bill be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Public Health and Welfare recommends House Bill 2749 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Federal and State Affairs recommends House Bill 2614 be passed, and because the committee is of the opinion that the bill is of a non-controversial nature, be placed on the consent calendar. Mr. President, the Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources recommends House Bill 2607 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources recommends House Bill 2634 be passed, and because the committee is of the opinion that the bill is of a non-controversial nature, be placed on the consent calendar. Mr. President, the Committee on Utilities recommends House Bill 2527 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Utilities recommends Senate Bill 284 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Education recommends House Bill 2645 be amended by substituting with a new bill to be designated as Senate substitute for House Bill number 2645, and the substitute bill be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Education recommends Senate Bill 427 be passed.
This time I'm withdrawing House Bill 2705 from the Committee on Education, referring to the Committee on Ways and Means. Before adjourning, are there announcements? Senator Berlin, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Tax Committee will meet Monday at noon.
Further announcements? Seeing none, Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Cali, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move the Senate adjourn pro forma until 9 a.m. on Friday, March 22nd, 2024.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Senate's adjourned.